Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the very first episode of the YouTube channel Doctor's Wisdom Share. Before anything else, I would like to begin by sharing a personal reflection that is not only my own, but also represents the very soul and spirit of this YouTube channel. The path of practicing medicine does not necessarily involve traveling far, writing books, or creating works of art. Yet it is precisely through these experiences that I have been able to carve out my own pathos that allows me to bring my love into medicine and my love into humanity. In today's program, I will focus primarily on the field of healthcare. In each episode, I will choose a specific topic for discussion covering medical knowledge, health issues, diseases, and matters of concern in medicine, both domestically and internationally. The topic of today's episode is titled A Conversation with a Doctor. This episode serves as a greeting and also as my personal introduction to those of you who will accompany me on this YouTube journey. Today, I have the opportunity to sit here and share with you what it truly means to be a doctor with challenges, the hardships, the pressures of the profession, and the personal experiences I have lived through. In fact, I had the idea of creating a YouTube channel more than 10 years ago. To be precise, the idea was conceived 13 years ago. Why did I want to do this? Why did such a thought take root in my mind? Because I was deeply moved by a profound statement within the medical field. The physician of the future will not merely prescribe medicine. The physician of the future will guide patients, teaching them how to care for their bodies, helping them understand medical knowledge, the causes of disease, and, most importantly, how to prevent illness. This insight was shared by medical scholars more than a century ago. I came to realize that if I were to become a doctor who only examined patients and prescribed medication, the value I could offer would be extremely limited. My belief is this: doctors must step beyond the hospital gates. We must bring medical knowledge to the public, teaching people how to eat properly, how to care for their bodies, and how to understand the root causes of disease. Only then can people truly learn how to prevent illness rather than simply endure it. I firmly believe that living a good life, maintaining good health, and even aspiring to live beyond 100 years of age is entirely possible. Just yesterday, I advised a man that he could absolutely live to the age of 120 if he followed proper guidance in mental discipline, lifestyle habits, nutrition, and healthcare. With the right approach, having a strong body and a long life is not unrealistic at all. I once explained that the theoretical limit of human lifespan is often considered to be 7 times the growth age. Since human growth typically ends at around 25 years old, this suggests a potential maximum lifespan of up to 175 years. So what truly defines a good doctor? Is it someone who treats rare, complex diseases requiring exceptional technical skills? In reality, not necessarily. A truly excellent doctor is one who treats disease before it occurs, before any symptoms manifest at all. A slightly less capable doctor treats disease when it is still mild. But when a disease has already progressed to a severe stage and only then reaches the doctor, that doctor is no longer practicing at the highest level. It is precisely because of this understanding that I have long nurtured the desire to establish a YouTube channel to use media as a bridge to bring medical knowledge to the community and to patients. However, professional responsibilities constantly pulled me away, and working alone made it difficult. And so, the plan was postponed again and again until the COVID-19 pandemic finally passed. During the COVID-19 pandemic, I truly understood the meaning of community value and the power of dissemination. Every single day, I received thousands of messages and countless phone calls, people asking how to prevent COVID-19, how to treat loved ones when hospitals were unreachable. We all remember those days: nationwide lockdowns, social distancing, empty streets devoid of human presence. Only healthcare workers, police officers, and soldiers were permitted to leave their homes to fulfill their duties. I vividly remember that we were required to report our routes, schedules, and movements in detail. No stopping, no detours, no deviation. Standing on those silent streets, I often thought, if COVID-19 or another pandemic were to return, we would once again face the same hardships. At that time, None of us knew if we would still be healthy the next day. Even I myself, when I walked into the hospital, felt healthy. Yet right outside my office was a COVID testing station. COVID patients surrounded us. I did not know whether I would be infected the next day, nor did I know how fragile the boundary between life and death truly was. It was in those moments that I realized how precious life is, how vital health is, and how essential prevention truly is. During the pandemic, there were countless touching stories. One that moved me deeply was that of a nurse colleague who volunteered to go to the front lines. While she was serving in a COVID hospital, both of her parents passed away. She could not return home to mourn them. Seeing her set up a small altar alone in the hospital was profoundly heartbreaking. That was when I truly understood medicine is not just science, it is humanity. It was during that time that I wanted to create a YouTube channel to help patients who could not reach hospitals, to guide them in caring for themselves. But again, circumstances did not allow it. My workload was overwhelming, and so the plan was postponed until today. We all know that there are two kinds of illness: physical illness and mental illness. A poor doctor may harm only a limited number of patients, but a poor writer can harm an entire generation and deeply affect society. A doctor, no matter how skilled, can only save a certain number of lives each day. But a great writer, a great communicator can save an entire generation. They can save society itself. It is because of this belief that I wish to share knowledge, wisdom, and life messages with the public. And with that spirit, I sincerely hope to receive your support. I would also like to send my heartfelt wishes to all viewers watching this program, wishing you good health, joy, and happiness in life. My medical journey began in surgery. I was originally trained as a surgeon, performing operations day after day. Later on, I transitioned into the field, where I am currently working diagnostic imaging, which many people still commonly refer to as radiology or simply X-ray medicine. Looking back, I realized that my medical path has been marked by many turning points. In the beginning, I was deeply passionate about traditional Eastern medicine. I once planned that after graduating from medical school, I would become a practitioner of traditional medicine. During my years at medical school, I studied traditional medicine in my 3rd and 5th years. Through those studies, I discovered that I had a strong affinity for Eastern philosophy and Eastern culture. I felt that my way of thinking, my sensitivity, and my cultural perception aligned naturally with the philosophy of Eastern medicine, and perhaps even more so than in other medical fields, and more than many of my peers. This, I believe, was an advantage for someone pursuing traditional medicine. Secondly, I understand the emotions, the inner thoughts, the psychology of Asian people, and these elements integrate very naturally into the practice of traditional medicine. At that time, I also discovered that I had strong practical abilities. For example, when practicing acupressure and acupuncture in the hospital during my student years, I achieved remarkably effective results. In many cases, my outcomes were even better than those of practicing physicians at that time. This further strengthened my confidence. However, as time passed, I began to feel that I wanted to engage more deeply with modern medicine. I wanted to bring the breadth of modern science and technology to patients. At one point, I considered switching to obstetrics because I love children. I had planned to pursue a career in obstetrics. However, there was one aspect of obstetrics that deeply disturbed me: abortion, especially late-term abortion. The emotional burden of those procedures affected me profoundly, and I realized that I could not continue down that path. So I returned to surgery. I worked in surgery for about 2 years, but gradually, I came to another realization: if I only performed surgical operations, it would be very difficult to apply the latest advances in science and technology. At that time, access to CT scans and MRI machines was extremely limited. But I clearly understood one crucial truth: if we wait until disease manifests symptoms to diagnose it clinically, it is often already too late. We need technology. We need science. We need what I call special ice tools that allow us to see disease before symptoms appear. And that realization is what led me to diagnostic imaging. Today, as a diagnostic imaging physician, I detect countless diseases every single day, diseases that show absolutely no symptoms, These silent conditions are often the seeds of severe and life-threatening illnesses in the future. Being able to identify them early, intervene early, and change a patient's trajectory has given me a profound sense of fulfillment. Let me briefly explain why X-ray medicine carries such significance. Initially, there were only fluoroscopy machines. Doctors would observe organ movement in real time to diagnose disease. In those days, patients did not even have X-ray films. Patients stood in front of the machine while doctors observed the internal motion of organs to make diagnoses. Hospitals had dedicated fluoroscopy rooms at movie theaters, but rooms where doctors could look inside the human body. Back then, radiologists primarily performed fluoroscopy, developed films, and interpreted images. That was the extent of the job. Today, however, diagnostic imaging has become the central nervous system of the hospital. It integrates clinical medicine, laboratory testing, and imaging sciences. It now encompasses ultrasound, CT scans, MRI, and even interventional treatments. I myself spent a period working in interventional radiology. Through minimally invasive techniques, we can now treat diseases from head to toe. Conditions that once required open surgery, such as brain vascular disorders, can now be treated through a tiny incision of just 3-4 millimeters in the groin. Instruments are guided from the thigh up to the brain. Patients do not require general anesthesia, feel almost no pain, and can even converse with us during the procedure. For example, in cases of carotid cavernous fistula, patients suffer from protruding eyes, severe redness, inability to close their eyes, and constant roaring sounds in their ears like a rice mill or an airplane engine inside the head. In the past, surgeons had to perform highly invasive operations, opening the neck artery and inserting muscle tissue to block the abnormal blood flow. Today, we simply guide a catheter through a tiny incision and seal the abnormal connection with a balloon. Within hours, the eye returns to normal. This is the power of modern imaging medicine. Radiologists are often the silent workers behind the scenes. We sit in dark rooms, interpreting black and white images. Our mission is to make these silent images speak, to reveal where disease is hiding and guide the best possible treatment. Despite this, many people even within the medical field do not fully understand what radiologists do. Some believe the work is monotonous or lacks meaning. Many medical students ask me, "Teacher, after studying medicine for 6 years, is it a waste to become a diagnostic imaging doctor?" What they do not realize is that diagnostic imaging is one of the most competitive specialties. In many countries, becoming an independent radiologist requires 16 years of training. Although my work is demanding and intense, I still make every effort to bring medical knowledge to the public so that people can prevent disease, not merely treat it. I firmly believe that even in difficult times, we can still find motivation, optimism, and joy in life. There are many kinds of doctors. Some struggle for years without curing patients. Others can recognize disease at a glance and immediately understand the best treatment. Healthcare systems often classify doctors into different levels, but in my view, doctors fall into 3 distinct categories. The first category includes doctors who rely solely on what they learned in school. They may hold advanced degrees and professorships, but they apply knowledge passively and remain confined within a limited framework. I consider this the lowest level. The second category consists of physicians who continuously update their knowledge and actively apply the latest scientific advancements to patient care. The third category includes medical scientists, those who conduct research, develop new diagnostic methods, and pioneer new treatments. These are the architects of medical progress. Medicine has existed since the dawn of humanity, with recorded practices dating back more than 5,000 years. A timeless saying reminds us, a physician must keep their heart within their chest. This principle guides my entire practice. Both Eastern and Western medicine emphasize ethics. Eastern medicine emphasizes moral cultivation, while Western medicine is built upon the Hippocratic oath, the vow we still uphold today. I believe that a true physician must embody 4 essential qualities: the heart of a compassionate mother, the brain of a scientist, the hands of an artisan, the soul of an artist. Without compassion, medicine loses humanity. Without science, medicine loses accuracy. Without skilled hands, medicine loses effectiveness. Without artistry, medicine loses intuition. Medicine integrates natural sciences, medical sciences, and the arts. Without balance among these domains, healing remains incomplete. There is one more reflection I would like to share. Perhaps it seems unrelated at first, but in reality, it is deeply connected. When a person is healthy, when they are not suffering from illness, life often feels joyful. In that state, people tend to feel curious about the world, eager to understand how the universe works, or at least passionate about discovering knowledge that gives life meaning. But when cancer suddenly appears, everything changes. People who are diagnosed with cancer often collapse completely. Their faith in science becomes blurred. Their understanding of rational knowledge weakens. Many begin to cling to superstition, rumors, and unverified beliefs. I believe many of you watching this program will recognize this reality. Advice such as stay positive, think optimistically, keep a cheerful spirit may sound vague or even empty. Yet in truth, mental strength occupies an extraordinarily important position in healing. When a patient falls into fear, despair, and confusion, no longer knowing whether to trust science or to search for miracles from superstition, it is the doctor, the healer, the compassionate presence who must step in. It is the doctor who must bring love, faith, scientific understanding, and the quiet miracle of healing. Cancer especially evokes deep fear. People hear the word and immediately associate it with death. But in reality, cancer is not as terrifying as many believe. In many cases, cancer is similar to other chronic diseases. And I say this with certainty, most cancers detected at an early stage can be cured completely. I say this not only as a physician but as a son. My own father was diagnosed with cancer when I was still a medical student. At that time, my medical knowledge was limited. He suffered from cancer of the urinary system. In those years, cancer was almost synonymous with a death sentence. I was overwhelmed. I collapsed emotionally because I was not only a doctor in training, but also a family member facing the possible loss of a loved one. Through that experience, I came to deeply understand the fear and despair that ordinary people feel when confronted with a terminal diagnosis. It feels as though the ground collapses beneath their feet. Science becomes something to doubt, while rumors and folk remedies suddenly feel convincing. Papaya leaves, traditional healers, whispered cures, fortune tellers. Fear itself becomes a silent killer. Yet doctors often tell cancer patients to stay optimistic. I believe such advice on its own is meaningless. A doctor must not simply speak encouragement. A doctor must walk with the patient, helping them transform their way of living, turning cancer into a manageable chronic condition, prolonging life, and sometimes even achieving healing. My father lived nearly 30 years after his cancer diagnosis. He passed away at the age of 97, not from cancer, but from vascular blockage after refusing further treatment and nutrition. Had he wished, he could have lived longer. What made the difference was not merely medicine, it was trust. Trust in medicine, trust in life, trust in hope. I would like to share another deeply personal story. 8 years ago, a patient came to me, retired physician herself. She had advanced stomach cancer with metastasis to the lungs, liver, and multiple other organs. She suffered from massive abdominal fluid accumulation and pleural effusion. She could barely breathe. The hospital concluded that her respiratory failure was severe and irreversible. Fluid drainage offered only temporary relief before the lungs filled again. The prognosis was poor. The family was advised to take her home to pass peacefully or accept that she would die in the hospital. When she came to me, she said, "Doctor, please find a way to save me. I don't want to die yet. I still have things I need to finish." I sat down beside her bed. I held her hand. I said, "You are a doctor. Why are you thinking about death? As a doctor, you should be thinking about how to live well, how to live meaningfully. I will walk with you." That simple act, sitting beside her, holding her hand, speaking with sincerity, brought light back to her face. Trust returned to her eyes. I explained the causes of her abdominal and pleural fluid and why they led to respiratory failure. Most importantly, I addressed her pain. I performed a celiac plexus neurolysis using a needle guided deep into the body to eliminate pain signals. After the pain was controlled, I told her, If we stop the pain, adjust your lifestyle, and modify treatment, you can stabilize. You will live. There is nothing to fear. The next day, I visited her at home. I asked about her appetite. She told me she had no desire to eat and was relying on intravenous nutrition. I explained to her gently, eating is the most important thing for cancer patients. Intravenous nutrition can never replace real food. Then I told her something different. I said, today, eat 2 spoonfuls of rice for your grandchild, who is waiting for you to get better. Tomorrow, eat 2 more spoonfuls for your son and daughter-in-law. Then eat for your husband. By attaching love to each bite of food, she slowly regained the ability to eat. Later, I introduced music into her life. I played carefully selected pieces suitable for her condition. When she began to enjoy the music, I suggested she learn an instrument, piano. She laughed and said, I have cancer. Why learn music now? I replied, do not think that way. You don't need to become an artist. Just play the piano, like typing on a keyboard. It is healing. Gradually she began to learn music, resumed daily activities, went to the market, managed her household, and most importantly, organized her family affairs so she could live peacefully. She lived for 2 more meaningful years. One day, she sent me a message. Thank you, doctor. For the past 2 years, I truly lived as a human being. Before, I was busy with work and never understood the meaning of life. As Buddhism teaches, life is not about length, but about breadth. These 2 years gave me great breadth. She invited me to her home for one last meal and to hear her play piano. She said she felt at peace and ready. Sadly, I was abroad at the time and could not return. It was late autumn. I was reminded of the last leaf story, where belief sustains life. But in her case, she passed away quietly, peacefully, at the end of autumn. That evening, I wrote her a poem, something I rarely do. It was inspired by a European maple tree, whose leaf resembles a crown. That tree had only 1 leaf left, trembling, ready to fall. I wrote, a withered maple leaf falls softly this evening, drifting like a butterfly, carrying all of life's longing. Nothing in this world is eternal. No one lives forever. Crown-shaped leaves of autumn learn to fall at dusk. Just as the maple leaf returns to the earth, so do we. We are born from dust, rise to become human beings who strive, love, and achieve it. In the end, we return to dust. The lesson is not to fear death, but to learn how to live meaningfully and even how to die with peace. Finally, I would like to conclude with a prayer. May God grant doctors ears to hear, anger with friendship, doubt with faith, bitterness with sweetness, despair with kindness. May God grant doctors strength and wisdom to make good decisions, humility and gratitude, and inner peace to bring joy to patients. Where there is darkness, may doctors be the light. And finally, may God grant me a special stethoscope to hear the heartbeat of the one I love. This concludes today's topic, a conversation with a doctor. Thank you sincerely for listening and watching. Goodbye, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next episodes.